Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais in Ontario, Canada. And I've got to tell you, we had our first light snowfall in this part of Ontario this morning. So everything was quite white and Christmassy for a while. And we're here with episode number 146 of the Yakking Show. This is a show for awakening you to new perspectives for the changing world we find ourselves in. And it's certainly changing. As always, we have interesting guests. But it's not my job to introduce guests. Kathleen does it a lot better than I do. I first welcome my co-host, Kathleen. How are you doing today, Kathleen?
I'm doing great, Peter. Thank you for that intro. And thank you also very much for tuning into our show. We so appreciate you and we love reading your comments. So please keep those coming. And if anyone out there is interested in being a guest on our show, please don't hesitate to reach out to either Peter or myself. And as Peter mentioned, we do have another special guest with us today. Her name is Charlotte Silverstein. Charlotte, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm in Los Angeles, so no snow here. It's very nice out.
I've got to say, we had a good run this fall. It's only in the last week the temperatures have really dropped. We've been spoiled, and now it's come with a shock. Anyway.
I just want to mention my internet seems to be a little bit shaky right now, so my apologies if we have a little bit of technical issues. But Charlotte, you are an expert in public relations, and you've previously worked on with some top PR firms in the US, and you've now founded your own firm based out of, as you said, Los Angeles, which is called Lena Rose PR. Can you tell our audience a little bit about your background and how you came to establish your own PR firm? And by the way, how did you come up with the name Lena Rose PR?
Yeah, so to work it back just a little bit, I started off in the PR world working on the talent side. So I'm in Los Angeles. That means representing actors and actresses on the TV series you might see on Netflix, Hulu, and the movies. And, it was really great, a wonderful learning experience. All the glitz and glam goes away very quickly. What you might see in front of the camera is not what goes on behind the scenes. It really just wasn't resonating with me personally. But one of the firms I was at, there were so many different departments, brands, fashion, food and beverage. And whenever I had some free time, I would help out on those teams. And I really felt a much stronger connection with those entrepreneurs in those industries. So I sort of started to make the shift away from talent and more towards, lifestyle and authors and food and beverage, like you might have seen on my website. And then about 4 years ago, I just decided, I really want control over what types of clients I'm working on. I want to make an impact. So I founded Lena Rose PR about 4 years ago. And it's been going really, really great. I'm so lucky to have wonderful clients. And then so behind the name, so many businesses have, it'd be like Silverstein PR or Beauvais PR. And I really didn't want my name fully involved in the business name. So Lena Rose, Lena is actually my middle name. And then Rose is my birth flower, and roses, have so many different layers to them. And I feel like my business and the clients I represent have so many different layers. So I felt that was pretty representative of what I was going for with the ethos and messaging behind the business.
Interesting. And I think you've got a lot of flowers on your website, if I remember rightly, too.
Yes, there were little changes on the website, but there's definitely a lot of florals and plants and stuff like that.
Something I picked up from something that you've written on your website is you seem to have quite a big concern about the general direction of PR, and particularly when it comes to opportunities for everyday entrepreneurs. Do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So, I absolutely understand everyone has their own way of running their businesses, but many PR firms out there, unfortunately, if you don't hit, maybe, for example, a minimum $5,000 budget a month, they won't even consider you as a client. And I feel like everyone deserves a chance. There's so many incredible business ideas out there, wonderful entrepreneurs. And I wanted to, kind of set the bar that no matter what your budget and your background, you do have access to a publicist. So it's not to discredit the big firms. They do an incredible job and their work is great, but I really wanted to open the door and open opportunities for PR for, those different groups of people that might not have that big budget right away. And, down the line, you establish that relationship with your client. And, once you have that trust, and they say, Charlotte, now I'm making more money, I'm able to pay you more, or what have you, it's just really building that trust. And I don't think you should discredit someone because of their background or budget. So really creating a flexible plan for every type of client out there and starting from zero. So many of them are starting from zero. So I think that's an important conversation to have. A lot of PR firms are kind of starting to notice and make a shift, but it's still kind of an issue in the industry.
Sure. Because even if we take some of the huge new tech companies like Facebook, Amazon, and all the rest, they all started from very little. And when they started, they certainly wouldn't have been attractive to any big PR agency. And I bet there could well be a few agencies kicking themselves now.
Exactly. And, I love working with clients from the way beginning, even if they don't have a website yet, it's just really developing all aspects. I would say, of course, my main focus is PR, but really also acting as a guide on all aspects of their business. If they're just starting out, I think it's really important, and all different aspects go hand in hand.
Super.
So what type of clients do you typically work with? I know you said you work from all spectrums, but can you give us a little bit of insight? Because I'm wondering what would motivate them to contact you? Not necessarily you, I mean, a PR expert per se, like
right.
What would motivate them to do that?
Yeah. So I know some, PR firms focus on hotels only, or food and beverage only, or airlines only, or, authors only. I focus on all different industries. I love working with all types of clients. The main factor here that links them all together is that they're impactful. They're making a positive impact in the world. So whether they're a mental health expert, they're fighting for women's rights, or they're vegan and sustainable, just some sort of aspect of their business is creating an impact that's really helping all of us in the long term. Because, as publicists, we work with the media to basically influence, consumers to purchase a product or make a decision. We're behind the scenes and we're telling people what to buy. So it's really important for me that is linked to something positive, a positive message or a positive product, or whether they have a recycle program. So really, often when people come to me, they do see the good doing aspect, the do good aspect of all the client and that link there. So that's a lot of the reasons why businesses will find us and reach out.
I got to ask you from that, if you work with such a wide variety of clients, that means your network of contacts on the media side has to be huge, because some media outlet that specializes in wine is probably not going to be a very good contact for a new range of baby wear, for instance. So how do you get around that one?
Yeah, exactly. And it's just been years of building out the Rolodex. And, nowadays, sadly, the media industry has really, been hit hard. Their budgets have been cut. So a lot of writers have gone freelance, which means they write for so many different outlets and different types of industries. But because I established relationships with these writers so long ago, now they're letting me know, hey, I'm now writing for these 5 outlets versus 1, or I'm writing, about a couple different industries now. So it's really just making sure I'm staying in the loop with my network, which is now very big, as you mentioned, but and just keeping that relationship, we've established our relationship and we're always staying in contact and checking in, and even just a quick little email goes a long way to see what people are working on. And then, it's very much research based as well. So if I don't have a contact in a specific industry, we can do the research. We have the software. There's incredible PR databases that we have access to that we can find a contact if we need to cold email someone as well.
Wow, very good. So here's one that I've been dying to ask you. As you know, we've interviewed quite a number of your clients, and we're amazed that every single one of them speaks so highly of you, which is wonderful. But where does the magic come from? How do you get that rapport with your clients?
I think there's a few different aspects. The biggest thing is, right off the bat, vetting my potential clients and making sure our mission's aligned, like we talked about, they're doing a positive impact. So right out of the gate, we have that bond that we want to spread a positive message. And then from there, I pride myself in, not passing off work to someone else. I'm always, really heavily involved with the client. We do weekly calls. So we really just establish that personal relationship. And then they feel comfortable and they can, be transparent about what's going on in their business and in their personal lives. So really building that rapport is so important. And I find that, if it's super easy to get overwhelmed with so much work, and kind of easy to pass it off to someone else. So I really try to stay involved on all accounts and all clients, which is why I find that weekly call is just so important. Even if we don't have much to update on, just at least have a little check-in. And sometimes, I'm maybe a little bit too transparent with my clients as to, what goes on behind the scenes, but I think they really appreciate the honesty and the feedback. I'm always sharing what reporters are saying about, the pitch angles, they're loving your product or they're not loving this aspect of your product. We need to adjust. Sometimes there's things that I probably should not be sharing with them, but I feel that it's important. So really I think it goes back to trust and relationships.
Right.
Well, you certainly do it well from the feedback we got. That's well done. That's good to hear.
Thank you.
So according to your website, many of your clients have been featured in magazines as well as some major news platforms. Can you tell us about some of the big successes on behalf of some of those clients?
So I wouldn't say, there's one specific, magazine article or TV interview that I would say was the biggest success. I think it's more so an overarching, strategy. The strategy was successful. I would use an example. I think you had organized Jane on a while ago. She and I started from scratch. Her website was a mess when we first started working together. She didn't really have a clear direction. So we did a whole rebrand and then built her portfolio up, slowly, started with small blogs and interviews and then built up to TV. And that was years of work. So I think for me, the biggest successes have been, watching clients who are starting from basically zero. And now, Jane is doing what she's loving to do and is getting paid, the big bucks to go speak on organizing for big companies. So I think for me, the biggest success is watching the overall strategy really come to life and in the end goal being reached, whether it's, landing a book deal, she's landed some book deals, or whether someone wants to have their own TV show or raise a certain amount of fundraising dollars for their cause. Those to me are the biggest successes. There's some great magazine articles. Of course, we all love getting, the New York Times or an Elle Canada or a CTV interview, but I think for me, it's just really seeing those clients happy to reach their goals and their dreams come true.
Very good. So let's look at the dark side. What are some of the biggest PR mistakes in their strategy? Some people in the industry, not in the industry. If you look at clients, perhaps before they come to you, what would be some of the biggest mistakes they make in their PR strategy?
I think it's really being closed-minded to other opportunities. So some people will come to me and say, I only want to be featured in the New York Times, or I need a hit in Forbes magazine, or I don't feel like it's successful. I think it's just having those shutters on. You have to be open-minded. There are so many incredible outlets out there, so many amazing podcasts that you might not know about, and you have to be willing and able to participate and build up your links. If you're closed-minded and you're only focused on a Forbes that may not want to feature you, I think you're just really, hurting your strategy there. You have to, especially in the beginning, pretty much say yes to almost everything that aligns with your strategy, whether it's, a blog that only has 2 views. You don't know if that one reader might write for a big magazine as well, or be a big banks and purchase your product. So, I think it's just, you have to be open-minded. And I've had so many people come to me with a target list that is so tight and small, and they're restricting themselves from opportunities there.
Interesting.
So Can you tell us what a client can expect when they pick up the phone to call you for the first time? Can you walk us through perhaps some of the process that you take them in order to help them?
Of course. Yeah. So definitely start off with a quick intro call just to kind of feel them out and make sure, like we were saying, our mission's aligned, they fall in line with my company values, and they have some sort of a direction. And then from there, we'll gather all the information and put together an overarching strategy. So they will receive sort of a PDF deck with, some target outlets, a timeline that we kind of foresee how long this would take for the PR strategy to come through together. And then some different, pitch angles and other things. PR is such a broad term these days. Of course, there's interviews, but now there's also events, working with influencers, coming up with different kind of social strategies. So there's different facets of PR, and it's really chatting with the client and figuring out, okay, yes, the interviews are great, but what else can we do to go a step further? What different activities can we do? Is it an Instagram Live? Is it making sure you're partnered with the right person on TikTok? Is it providing product for charity events? Those are all different little aspects of PR that often get forgotten. So we put some options there within the deck, and then we review it together, and then we sort of hit the ground running and move forward. And then once we start working together, which I think is so important, is we have them fill out an information sheet. So some of the questions are really silly, like, do you run? Are you a good cook? That sort of thing. But it really helps me to get to know the client better on a personal level, but also, come up with creative pitch angles. So for example, Kathleen, maybe you have a beautiful office space. We could do, an office tour with Architectural Digest, even though you're focusing on something else in your business, not limiting ourselves to one box. So I think it's so important to get to know the client at the beginning, and come up with those pitch angles. And then from there, like I said, we have our weekly calls, and they get monthly reports, and we're chatting pretty much every day via email as well. So there are a lot of different steps to go through.
Right. So I just have a follow-up to that. So if a person is coming to you and they've done they're starting at ground zero and they don't even have a website. So do you have a team that can help them piece all of this together?
Yeah, so sometimes it's not someone that might be on my team specifically, but I do have partner agencies. For example, I have a go-to web designer, or I have a go-to graphics designer. Then we'll all work together and make sure everything is aligned and get them partnered up together. That's a big thing too, is I don't want to start working with someone unless they are fully media ready. So, whether they have enough product samples we can send to media, or whether their website is, fully functioning and people can make purchases. We need to make sure that's all set, because if you do an interview and then someone's trying to find your website and it's not there, or it's not working, then, what was the point? It's just, it's a missed opportunity. So we want to make sure that before we launch the campaign, or at least in the beginning, there's at least somewhat of a landing page or a way for people to connect with you, so that we're not kind of wasting time and we're starting to build up your credibility. So important.
So something that you're talking about, outside partners and agents, so small businesses, entrepreneurs who are really pressed for time, and perhaps people like me are not that inclined to get involved in social media. Do you have people that can do that for them, that write content for them? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and we do, pending the client, we'll create a social media strategy, or if it's a huge campaign, we'll outsource that as well. So we do have all of those contacts, and for different budgets and that sort of thing. And it might not be appropriate for the beginning of your campaign, but maybe further down the line we'll connect to you. So it's really, everyone is on a case-by-case basis, and I think it's so important for people to understand that one PR strategy you might see out there with a brand that might be similar to yours might not be the best fit for you. So it's really creating a custom plan.
I got another one I just thought of too. There's so much talk of the whole nature of work changing between the virus and people working remotely, and factory jobs being automated, and artificial intelligence, and so a lot of younger people coming out of college now are thinking, what are we going to do? And I know that a lot of people are attracted to PR. So what would your advice be for someone who's perhaps still in high school and looking ahead and thinking, what should I study and what should I do with my life? And I would like to get into PR. What would be your advice for that person?
I mean, absolutely. Now, the pandemic was awful, but also, a blessing because, you don't have to apply to jobs that are in your city specifically,
Right.
So, and there are so many wonderful PR firms across the globe that are always looking for interns or help. And, now you're not limited to just one or two firms in your small town. You can apply and reach big, make connections on LinkedIn, continuously networking. And now there's so many amazing networking events online, on Zoom, on Google Meets that we used to not have access to, when we were in high school. So I think it's really taking advantage of those opportunities. They have a huge opportunity to grow their networks so much more quickly than we did, I think, with this online world. And now even more so than ever with all these online events, and so many of them are free. So I think it's just, take advantage of them while you can and while you have the downtime. And, definitely don't be afraid to reach out and volunteer. And everyone's always looking for help. So I think it's just, take advantage of that while you have the time. And those free events are really great. There's so many good PR networking events online, and Facebook groups that they could join and get access to those meetings.
Wow. That's good advice for youngsters. Kathleen, sorry, I've got another one I just thought of. Can I jump in while I've got Charlotte? Charlotte, you were talking about new stuff, and we know social media has all happened in the last 20 years, and podcasts even probably 10 years ago, people weren't using podcasts. So what do you see looking 5 years ahead? What do you see as the nature of PR in 5 years' time? How is it going to change a lot? Is it going to be more of what's happening?
I think it's going to stay pretty similar. Unfortunately, I think as far as the print magazine aspect, that is basically dead. And it's so sad and unfortunate. And it's really just continuously educating clients that the online opportunities are there and they're actually better for your reach. And to get clients comfortable with all the new platforms, if they're not used to it. And getting comfortable in front of the camera, because so many consumers these days do want to know the face behind the brand.
Sure.
So getting clients comfortable with showing up, whether it's quick social media videos or, hopping on an online forum and networking events. So I don't think it's going to change too much in terms of, what the tech out there is now. I think we're all online, but really just keeping on educating them. Some of them still come to us and say, well, I want to be in the print newspaper in my hometown. And that's wonderful, but you're not going to get the same impact these days anymore. So it's just so important to get on the podcast like yours and show up. So I think we're still heading in this direction.
Yeah. I mean, just an example, I wanted to check one of our interviews on Facebook, and I got onto the homepage and they had something about tractors, and I've been a farmer a lot of my life, so let me have a look at that. 1.7 million views in the last couple of years, and I'm thinking, this is a guy in a small town in Nebraska. If he'd been on every page in that small town newspaper, he wouldn't have got half the mileage and exposure he's got one video on YouTube. So
that's exactly it. And I understand wanting that small town connection, but there's the opportunities now are really endless and incredible.
Sure. And it still accommodates local because most people are on the internet in one way or another. So
exactly,
they'll still get you. Yeah. So here's my big one for you, because you've obviously met tons of loads and loads of business people. If you look at the ones you've met, is there a habit or a characteristic or something special about the ones who become successful compared to the ones that don't become successful?
I think the biggest thing is just being very patient,
Patient.
Building a business and going through a PR strategy. I always say it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So people who are expecting immediate results, at the snap of their fingers, or skip steps and are rushing around, it's just not beneficial. You have to be so patient. You have to be empathetic. It goes a long way. And these things take time. Everyone is so busy. Whether I reach out to a reporter today, it could take them months to get back to me. And you have to have that patience. But in those few months, they could get back to me with a huge opportunity. So just really being patient. And, of course, everyone wants the immediate results, but I think you have to look at the bigger picture, and have your plan for 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. And it's great to have those goals, and you have to understand there are many steps and it takes a lot of time to get there.
Right. Well, we're almost out of time. Charlotte, can you tell our audience how they can contact you?
Of course. So the best way would be to go to lenarosepr.com, and there is a contact button. So you can just fill out that form and we'll get back to you, within 24 hours usually. And if you want to connect on Instagram, it's at Lena Rose PR, and Facebook don't use too much anymore, but it's Lena Rose PR as well. Even if you just have a general question, we offer consulting calls rather than a whole campaign. So I'm always happy to answer anyone's questions.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for always interviewing my clients. And
we look forward to interviewing more.
Certainly do.
And next year, some of the ones that have grown under your direction, we'd be happy to have back.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah.
And you mentioned Jane Stoller. I'd be interested to see how she's got on, because she was sort of still in the early stages when we interviewed her about a year ago.
Yes, I need to send her back your way.
And there was another one that looked really interesting, and she was going to book and she didn't. Then a few weeks later, she was going to book and she didn't, and we never did interview her. I'm trying to think of her name.
I have to look through. I'll do some research and we'll make it happen.
Yeah, because when I looked at her website, I thought she'll be a good one, So anyway, great.
Thank you, and thank you all so very much for tuning in to our show. We so appreciate you, and until next time, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.